I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this just might be my most optimistic revival project ever. But it's what the people want. It's the 1961 Chrysler Saratoga we dragged home from Spokane. Did I say 61 Saratoga? 1960 Saratoga. We're off to a great start. It has seen some stuff. Let's just say that. Here's a quick look at the actually decent side of this car. This thing was saved by the previous owner to be a parts car for the 60 New Yorker convertible that we dragged home from Spokane. This was parked above it, and the side you could see, this passenger side, looked pretty nice. We could tell, of course, that the fender was kicked out at the front, and it had been in a pretty serious collision. The level of that seriousness, not entirely apparent until we finally got it down off the lift. It's really bad. And that is a shame, I'll tell you, because this thing is almost perfect inside. Look at these seats. They've even got those clear plastic grandma covers on them. This thing would have made a nice driver if we could have just put it back on the road. Unfortunately, it is far beyond that. Every panel on this side is tweaked. The driver's door is kind of okay. This corner just doesn't exist anymore. Being in 1960, this is one of Chrysler's earliest cars to utilize unibody construction. Although unlike the newly released 1960 Valiant, it's not fully unitized. This has a bolt-in subframe, or stub frame, at the front of the car that holds the drivetrain and mounts the front sheet metal and the radiator support. If it wasn't already apparent, that stub frame is just toast. It's bad. It's a pretzel. It's cooked. There's no coming back from that. A full-size Chrysler freak that is strong of will and pure of heart might look at this car and think, oh, you could save that. Yes, you could. All you need is a subframe, a bumper, a grille, this fender, that door, a quarter panel, and then the rest of the unibody probably needs to go on a frame rack to find out if it's at all straight, and you can even bolt any of those parts on. At the end of all that, you'll have a 1960 Chrysler four-door. Yes, it is a beautiful four-door hardtop, and yes, it's in a sweet color, which isn't even original paint, as you can probably tell by the roof. But my point is, it won't be valuable at all when you're done. Oh, also, these panels are damaged too. Did I say radiator? Needs one of those, and a radiator support, and the latch support. I could go on. Headlight trim, that turn signal, etc. And here's the thing. That 1960 New Yorker convertible right there, it needs a bunch of parts from that sedan. It's missing all kinds of stuff. That convertible is even rarer, much more desirable, incredibly valuable in comparison, and it's a good fixable car. So yeah, the parts are going to be better served on that thing. Even if it were up to me whether or not this thing got saved, which it wasn't, that ship has already sailed. Both of these cars have already been sold. Here's the thing though, this car's sitting here, and many viewers have said that they want to see me try and get it running and driving, and I'd really like to do that. And I'm sure the buyer won't mind if his new parts car actually fires up and moves. Not that I'm ready to bank on that just yet. No, I'm not. Not at all. The plate's gone off this car, although I swear it was still there when we picked it up. I have no idea how long it's been off the road now. A long time, definitely. I know for a fact the last time this engine ran was at the moment it got in that wreck. And I know that because the fan is jammed into the radiator and it hasn't moved. It's still in the little spot it landed in when that wreck occurred. You would be able to tell if there was like a sweep around the outside diameter of the fan, and there isn't. There was a plate on it. Tom kept it because, of course, he's a license plate and frame freak. The last tab on that plate, 1985. That's 10 years earlier than the 55 Imperial I revived recently, which people really liked. Because of the major crash damage, the order of operations on getting this thing runnable gonna be a little different than most revivals. It's going to involve trying to pull the frame slightly so the power steering pump isn't in the battery tray anymore, and so the fan isn't in the radiator isn't in the oil filter, that kind of thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to see if this engine turns. But what is this engine? It looks kind of cool. It's got a gold air cleaner on it, and it seems to say Golden Lion on the valve cover. What we're looking at here is something special and rare from Chrysler's history. This is a Golden Lion 383. But what makes this different than the 383s you'll be used to, this is a tall deck engine, just like a 413, a 426 wedge, or a 440. The quick and easy way to tell that is it's got a number pad right here. A short deck 383 would not have that. I read a story once about the provenance of the tall deck 383, and I don't know if it's true. I read it on Wikipedia. It has to be true. The story I read was there was excessive demand for 383 engines, and the short deck line couldn't keep up with that. So they devised this tall deck 383 to fill in the gap. I do know that they were very rare, only installed in 59 and 60 Chrysler Windsors and Saratogas built in America. This is a 4-barrel engine. It's got a slightly later style Carter 4-barrel than the one on the 55 Imperial. But it's old enough that it has a road draft tube. That's a breather pipe that points down at the ground. At high speed, air moving past that pipe helps to extract any vapors from the engine. Basically magic. Also, it's missing a plug wire for some reason. Anyway, it's also old enough to still be equipped with a generator. The alternator wouldn't come until the next year, 1961. This car will also be equipped with the earlier iron 3-speed TorqueFlite transmission. And this engine will have an extended crank flange with an 8-bolt pattern to match that. That means it's useless in any newer applications than 1961. It should have a push-button shifter, which we'll find here. Oh, that is nice. Ugh, ants! Being a 1960, there's no park. Reverse, neutral, drive, second, and first. Those are your options. This thingy below the transmission shifter, that is the turn signal stock. Don't ask me why they put it over here. It didn't stay there for long. This, of course, is the beautiful Astrodome gauge cluster. The odometer there is indicating 70,678-ish miles. Also, here, mirroring the push-button controls, the heater. Golden Tone by Chrysler. Nice. There's also a clock. We've been having a real problem with driver doors closing today. This might be my fault. Oh, I got it! Nice. Tom's here, and he's telling me interesting facts about long wheelbase Chryslers like this. Tell us your interesting facts.
So on the sway bars on these, all the long wheelbase Chryslers, so 60 to 62 New Yorker, 300F, 300G, Saratoga, they all got sway bars, so these are welded on. On the short wheelbase cars, so any Dodge or Plymouth in 6061 or the later cars, they're actually bolt-on sway bars. And those are super, super hard to find, the bolt-on ones, and they're super rare and really desirable.
Oh, that's not happy. Huh. Well, there's oil in it. It's slightly over full. It smells old. So, the oil looks like oil. It's not all full of water. I even grabbed the throttle and it moves. So, I had a feeling that this might turn. I tried it before and it didn't want to, but today, it does that thing we like. I should probably try not to ruin the radiator. Yeah, I just cranked it over like a quarter of a turn. Carefully. No problem. Feels perfect. Thankfully, it's been inside for like decades, so. Yay! It's a big block Chrysler. The crank turns. That means it's going to be a runner. As mentioned, though, we have a bit of an issue. That issue is I can't currently turn this engine to full rotation because the fan's in the radiator. The power steering pump pulley is not quite on the battery tray, but it's right next to it. And the pump itself is sitting very, very crooked. So here's what I'm thinking. And let me know your thoughts on this. I'm thinking we run a chain around the frame right there. We run the other end of that chain around the tow hitch on a truck, and then we just floor it that way and see what happens. The way I see it, it can't possibly get any worse. Well, maybe it could. First, I have to go get a truck. And to do that, I have to pull the battery out of our last revival project. Oh yeah, Jaguar. Oh, it's still hot. This is a tin-grilled V200 crew cab. It smokes for some reason. This is a chain, and this is something you should not try at home. Especially with a Cybertruck. are you doing, little fella? All right, here's the basic theory. Anchor, the thing in the middle that we're yanking on, the thing doing the yanking, which incidentally, should the oil light be like flashing at idle? We'll see how this works. That left side frame rail is tweaked that way, but it's also accordioned like this. And so my thought is, if we yank it out and it stretches that, that'll be a good first step. Now I would go around that lovely hitch, so the chain's super low down. That might be better. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure we'd just rip it off. Gonna have to try harder than that. Hate mail? Yeah. No. Wow. Yeah, that didn't work at all. Nope. Unfortunately, that's not going to work. I could think of all kinds of creative ways to waste more time trying to get this frame straightened enough that the radiator's off the fan, but it's just not worth it. So instead, I've got a new plan. I'm going to do the accessory belt delete. 1, 2. Also, incidentally, Tom noticed that there wasn't ever much point in getting this water pump to work. Apparently the bearing was taken out in the crash too. Oh, what are you doing? You're right in my way. Brand new battery, allegedly purchased for a Superbird. I'm just borrowing it, it's fine. Anyway, there were little zaps, so there must be a light stuck on in the car somewhere. It's actually 3 interior lights, both dome lights and this one on the dash. Nice. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but Tom somehow lost the keys, so things are going to get interesting here. I'm going to try and take this thing out. It might not be fun. This will come as a shock, but yeah, that doesn't do stuff at all, ever. Wow. This thing is so cool. Oh, neat. The day-night mirror's broken, so you can see how they work. I'm not covered in ants, but I kind of feel like I'm covered in ants. I want to take a second to try and explain something to you before I just bump the starter on this thing and see if it turns, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pull the plugs out. I'm not going to soak the rings. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I almost never do. There are cases where you should use the utmost care in reviving an engine. Say it's a 426 Hemi, a good 340, a rare irreplaceable numbers engine. In those cases, yeah, you should probably go the extra mile. Lubricate the cylinders. Why not? A commenter on my 55 Imperial video recently told me that I cannot start an engine that has been sitting for years like this without draining the oil, dropping the oil pan, pulling multiple main bearing shells, inspecting them, pre-lubricating the engine, cranking the engine, making sure those bearings are getting lubricant, reinstalling the pan, filling it with fresh oil, pulling every single spark plug out, scoping every cylinder, scoping every piece of the intake manifold to make sure there are no critters in there, carefully pre-oiling every piece of the engine, and only then can you possibly start it. That is the most, I'm going to say German. That is the most German thing I have ever heard. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to do your due diligence, to go the extra mile. I'm not saying pre-lubing cylinders is bad. It's not. What I am saying is in most cases, you don't need to do that. If your engine just turns right over like this one did, and it feels fine, smooth, you can be sure all of the pistons are moving freely. All of the rocker arms are moving freely. Nothing is rusted solid. There is enough oil left in that engine that when you start cranking it, everything is going to end up lubricated and it's going to be just fine. You'll notice I do always check the oil and make sure there is some, and make sure it looks good, and make sure it doesn't smell horrible. If that's the case, it's going to run. That's my experience, and your mileage may vary, but that's how I operate. If this engine did not turn, we would be pulling the plugs and lubricating the cylinders with some kind of magic juice. Transmission fluid, Marvel Mystery Oil. If it felt notchy when it turned, we would probably do that same thing. Because we could be sure there's rust in here. We could be sure something is messed up with the ring. We might pull valve covers and look for messed up rocker arms. But it feels good. when it turns, it feels smooth. I promise you, it's going to be just fine. And cranking the key on this engine, or, jump the relay with the screwdriver there, is not going to do anything that the ravages of time haven't already done. Maybe we're just lucky with our climate here, but yeah, that's been my experience. If it turns, it's gonna go, and there's no reason to worry. So having said that, let's see if this starter works. Oh, come on. This starter does not work. Okay, that's gonna be a problem. The early style starter. My old nemesis. Either the brushes in this thing are crudted up, or no power is actually getting through the solenoid, although it is clicking. Did you know this thing is absolutely disgusting? Anyway, I'm off to grab a big long pry bar and a hammer. Camera's dying, so I couldn't film this process. I beat on the starter mercilessly with a super long bar thing, and that didn't do anything. I put my screwdriver down there and jumped around the starter solenoid, powering up the starter motor itself directly, which you can do on these early ones. Can't do it on the later ones. And then it spun. Doesn't sound amazing, but it spun. So I kept shorting the relay out up here, doing this as I was, and then I decided to hold this and beat on the solenoid on the starter at the same time, because clearly it's a solenoid problem. So I was rewarded with this. Ready? Oh, my aim sucks. Here we go. Does not sound amazing. That's early starters for you. Occasionally it'll work a second time. We're getting better. Anyway, it does turn. And it does have compression. I could have told you that when I was cranking it by hand. I could hear it and feel it. I've turned this thing for a total of 20-25 seconds in testing. I already smell starter. These early ones are bad news. So I don't have a whole lot of time to screw around here. I need to put power to the ignition, see if we've got points that work, find a plug wire to replace the missing one, and then just see if it'll fire. I need to leave in like 7 minutes, so yeah, better get on that. Another super helpful piece of advice from the internet. You can't clean points with a file. Yes, you can. I've almost never used anything else. Don't use a bastard file, use a points file. It's a very fine, very skinny, delicate little thing. You clean the powder off, get a nice fresh surface, and you don't destroy them. It's very simple. They're sold in part stores everywhere. Points file. Do I sound bitter? Comments are driving me mad. I know I shouldn't read them, but some of them are good. And I appreciate the people that leave those. Anyway, what I did for this set of points is just scrub it with my screwdriver. And now I have this. That is a sure sign of spark and a working ignition. So let's see what happens if we dump some gas in it. And find a plug wire. Okay, now I have -5 minutes, so I poured a bunch of fuel down the throat and pre-filled the bowls slightly. And my phone's almost dead. And let's see if this will crank. I'm telling you, Mantis guy, you really ought to move. Another super helpful commenter said, get some ether. Good God, man. I'm guessing you've never sent a rod through the side of a slant 6 with ether before. I have. That's nasty stuff. They'll start on gas. That's what I'm gonna do. More gas, I guess. The 55 Imperial with the Hemi, it just wanted all of this. We'll try that technique on the 383. It's just thirsty. Man, I'm almost out. Oof. Starter's not smelling good. Can I just have like a real fart? Just one fart. Come on. Really? you go. Come on. Just run. How about that? It's so close right now. This is maddening. I was gonna try and get the choke to move, but I guess that was wishful thinking. It just wants more gas. I put in all the gas. It would be hard to dump more gas in there than I did. Might run now. Or maybe I finally flooded one, I don't know. Now! Run! Little ticky! Just a little. Oh, the bugs are scattering! Yeah, she's got a ticky lifter. At least one. Kind of doesn't sound good. I can hear oil moving around in there, so that's good. It's a runner.
I told him to give me 30 seconds.
Oh.
You'd have it done in 30 seconds.
Well, I was hustling. We won.
That's amazing.
It's something. Yeah, she's a little ticky though. It's only been 39 years since it crashed and stopped running. That ain't bad.
This thing has almost been sitting for as long as I've been alive.
And idle.
It's definitely been sitting longer than you've been alive.
Quite a bit. So we don't have a cooling system. You can't run for long. All right, I'm negative like 20 minutes, but let's see if it moves. Nothing to it.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh yeah.
You're not gonna hit anything anyways.
No.
It's about, oh, the gas just fell off though.
Oh no. What, the little one? Oh, it's empty.
Okay, you're dragging a chain.
I know. I can't get back to neutral. The buttons are all broken. But it drives. Someone should get that chain off the car.
I'm not crawling underneath there.
Huge. Okay, I just have to. Ooh, bro. Someone's got to go pull the wire. Oh, wait. There we go. Dude, the brake light lit up.
Did it really?
It did. Ta-da. It has no brakes, no accessories, obviously no cooling system. It kind of steers. It has 2 flat tires. It's dragging a chain, but it drove. It's amazing. I don't want to run it any longer than that. I mean, it could end up hurt, and we don't want to do that. Obviously, it's not exactly 100% anyway. It's been sitting for decades, and it does tick. That might get better with running it. It also might not, but either way, we have no coolant, so we're not going any further than that. No one can say this 60 Saratoga did not fire up and drive after 39 years and a serious accident, and I am very impressed. Hopefully you are too. I'm also super mega out of time, so yeah, it's time to get out of here. I'm gonna clean up my mess and hit the road. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed that. In any case, thanks for watching. And remember, just because it's not your way or the right way, doesn't mean it's not a way that works. I even fixed the door.